Exclusive: Deion Sanders to stay further away from NFL coaching after Shedeur and Shiloh's draft fate. Adam Brenneman. The Sanders clan is synonymous with polarizing. But love them or loathe them, you're going to talk about them. This weekend, however, the discourse around them was more prevalent than ever. Shedeur Sanders' inexplicable draft slide spawned enough hypotheticals and conspiracies to last through this offseason as the masses seek their football fix. It even raised questions of whether Deion Sanders' proactivity and involvement were a factor in why teams passed on the QB. The events over the course of the NFL draft add another layer of intrigue to the exclusive interview we at Essentially Sports had with analyst and CFB savant Adam Brenneman. Whichever way you scrutinize it, Deion Sanders' foray into the coaching realm has been a roaring success. He has turned around 2 college programs in an unprecedentedly short amount of time. Naturally, this brought about interest from the NFL. Deion was very heavily linked to the Cowboys' job earlier in the offseason. Alas, they've since hired Brian Schottenheimer, and Coach Prime has pinned a new contract with Colorado. The chat around this ascension to the next rung has quelled, but there was a belief it could reignite depending on how the chips fall in the draft. So now they were privy to that information. Is Deion Sanders more or less likely to coach in the NFL? During that aforementioned exclusive interview with Essentially Sports, Adam Brenneman implied it's the latter. We asked the former All-American tight end around a straightforward premise. Do you see Deion Sanders coaching in the NFL if Shiloh and Shedeur Sanders wind up at the same franchise? This, of course, was pre-draft. Brenneman's response is even more gripping with the context of how things went down in Green Bay. It's a fun storyline, but I don't see Deion leaving for the NFL right now. He thrives in college, where he can recruit, build culture, and be the face of the program. That's his superpower. If Shedeur and Shiloh end up on the same NFL team, sure, it would be tempting, said Adam Brenneman. That didn't transpire. Shedeur Sanders got drafted to the Cleveland Browns 144th overall, while Shiloh Sanders signed on as an undrafted player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This means the one door that Brenneman thought could open the door for Deion Sanders' exit from Boulder is now also shut. The signs do point towards him staying on. Brenneman's right about how the collegiate game suits Prime. He wouldn't get the keys to cultivate the sort of unidirectional imprint he's had on Jackson State and Colorado in the NFL. As much of a legend as he is, no coach gets that much leverage in the league. During this exclusive interview, Essentially Sports also asked Adam Brenneman his opinions on how Shiloh Sanders individually. The safety got the short end of the stick when it comes to Deion Sanders' athletic prowess permeating over to his sons. That said, there's still a serviceable player in there. The right coaching and an environment conducive to growth can extract that player from within him. Brenneman concurs with this. Being the son of Deion Sanders doesn't help Shiloh Sanders now that he's through the door. Any thoughts on whether Shiloh doesn't get drafted? Is what we asked Adam Brenneman during his exclusive Essentially Sports interview, who actually wound up giving an elaborate take on the player and what he'll need to do once he walks through that door at the Bucs. Shiloh Sanders is right on the edge. He's got great instincts and toughness, but the measurables aren't elite. He'll get a shot in a camp. Then it's up to him to stick, remarked Brenneman. Deion Sanders is unequivocally one of the greatest athletic specimens to grace the sports sphere. Heck, he played in both the NFL and MLB. But his genes didn't quite pass on with linearity to either Shiloh or Shedeur. It's morbidly ironic how their athleticism, or lack thereof, is the biggest indictment against them. How poorly the NFL received Shiloh and Shedeur's demands Deion Sanders to self-reflect. He has never coached without his sons on his team, so that wrinkle already adds an interesting dynamic. The 2025 season will say a lot about Deion Sanders, the father and the coach. The lines were blurred in the past, and it may have exacted a cost on them. But they're much more distinct roles now, and how he can coach under more conventional circumstances will say a lot about whether he takes the helm at an NFL franchise in the future. Next year is a litmus test of his acumen. Adam Brenneman, meanwhile, also gave Essentially Sports a scoop about his thoughts on Nico Iamaleava. Shedeur Sanders hit with uncomfortable reality check from Football World as jail remark adds fuel to NFL draft slide. You know it's bad when the draft cameras stop zooming in. Shedeur Sanders went from being hyped as a top 2 overall lock to sitting through 4 brutal rounds. watching name after name get called before his. When Cleveland finally picked him at number 144, it wasn't a celebration. It was a wake-up call. And just when it felt like things couldn't get messier, Shedeur Sanders grabbed a mic and made it worse, comparing his fall to being jailed. Yeah, he really said that. Shedeur Sanders' draft downfall was like watching a guy trip over his own shoelaces at the finish line. NFL scouts started chirping about how Shedeur came off cocky, brash, and entitled during combine interviews. One assistant coach even clowned him anonymously, saying, "The worst formal interview I've ever been a part of." Yikes. Said he was so entitled and blamed teammates. And, brace yourself, he's not that good. Cold-blooded. But if you thought it was just smoke, Shedeur himself poured gasoline on the fire. After finally getting drafted, he hopped on Deion Sanders Jr.'s YouTube channel, while off media, and tried to explain his freefall, saying, "I just feel like people that are just being jailed for something they ain't doing, bro." And there's no explaining, there's no talking about it. Reasoning. Dog. Jailed? That's the word he chose? The internet went full nuclear mode after that, flipping tables and dunking on him harder than Ja Morant on a fast break. Shedeur's stat sheet? Certified. For 1,134 passing yards, 37 tutties, 74% completion. The numbers low-key scream QB1. But when you pop the hood, scouts aren't loving what they see. They're talking about him taking dumb sacks, slow reads, and not exactly slinging that cannon arm you need to survive Sundays. Word is, Shedeur sometimes moved like he was stuck in molasses. Add in the fact that Shedeur allegedly showed up low-key unprepared for interviews, just so he could tank his stock and pick his landing spot, and it all starts to make ugly sense. Oh, and let's not forget Big Papa Prime, Deion Sanders himself, was comparing Shedeur's situation to Eli Manning, hinting he might pull strings to steer his boy away from bad franchises. Allegedly, Brian Daboll from the Giants even dipped into Boulder for a private visit, but once he saw the vibes, Giants swerved and grabbed Jackson Dart at number 25 instead. Internet nuked Shedeur Sanders' "for-jail experience" comment. When Yahoo Sports dropped the IG post, the comment section straight up exploded. First up. So after rumors of him falling because of a bad attitude/mentality, he doubles down and proceeds to play the victim. The Browns should do the funniest thing ever and cut him LOL. This fan is cooking straight off the stove. People were already skeptical of Shedeur's attitude after combine interviews where coaches flat out called him entitled and unprofessional. Instead of hitting the humble button and resetting, he doubled down with the jail comment, the ultimate victim play, and suggesting the Browns cut him would favor Dylan Gabriel on QB depth. Next fan didn't hold back either. Being a 23-year-old entitled squishhead with a Rolls Royce isn't really much like being in jail. First off, squishhead is Hall of Fame level roasting. But beyond the joke, the fan's making a real point. Shedeur isn't suffering. He's got nil money, luxury cars, famous parents, and a path to the NFL. Calling draft disappointment jail felt tone-deaf to people who've actually struggled, especially when you show up to pre-draft visits flexing like you already made it. Another fan kept it simple but deadly. He gotta take some accountability though. Look, you want to stay in the NFL? Accountability. Nobody likes locker room cancer. Ask Antonio Brown. Accountability is the currency of the NFL. Guys like Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, they eat that for breakfast. If your first move after sliding in the draft is to blame the system instead of owning your flaws, like slow decision-making and sack-taking, you're sending a terrible message to teammates, coaches, and fans. And then came the sledgehammer. This is why no one wanted him. Entitled, comparing jail to slipping in the draft is unhinged. Scouts weren't just worried about his footwork or athleticism. They were worried about the package deal of Shedeur and the primetime shadow. All the pre-draft smoke about him being cocky, brash, and difficult to coach wasn't some media fabrication. When you finally get the mic and, instead of humility, you compare your draft experience to a civil rights violation, it's going to stick. That's why teams passed. Not just for the on-field stuff, but because of stuff like this. And finally, the truth teller of the bunch. He got to take accountability. Some of the stuff he said during the press conference was nonsense. He said, "If you know you don't want me, don't take me." The dad also said some stuff that wasn't supposed to be said, but he said it anyways. Shadur didn't exactly help himself leading up to the draft either. That "don't draft me if you don't want me" stuff during his combined interviews? Wildly arrogant for a guy still proving himself. And Deion Sanders, for all his legendary greatness, didn't exactly help the optics, hinting he'd block Shedeur from certain teams. NFL teams want soldiers, not generals, before they've played it down. All that Eli Manning situation talk? It backfired. Badly. End of the day, Shedeur Sanders learned the hardest lesson of all. The NFL is brutal, and it doesn't owe you anything. The problem with Shedeur Sanders is that the man acts like he made it, even before getting into the league. Maybe Cleveland ends up being the perfect place for a fresh start. Low expectations. Real coaching. No more cameras every second. Maybe this is exactly what Shedeur needed. A little jailbreak from the hype machine.